All right, today we're diving into a condition called Erb's palsy. We're going to break down what it is, how it actually happens during birth, and, most importantly, what the journey to recovery looks like. So let's jump right in.
So let me ask you something right off the bat. Have you ever heard of the waiter's tip injury in a newborn? It's a really specific name, right? Well, there's a good reason for it. And if you haven't heard of it, no worries. By the time we're done here, you'll know exactly what it means and why it's such a huge clue for doctors.
Okay, so it all kicks off with something that, can be pretty scary to see. A newborn with a limp arm. That's usually the very first sign that something's up. So let's get right into defining what's really going on here. So what is Erb's palsy, really? Well, at its heart, it's a nerve injury. It all has to do with this big network of nerves called the brachial plexus. You can think of it as the electrical wiring for the whole arm. Erb's palsy happens when there's damage to the very top part of that network, specifically the C5 and C6 nerves. And this almost always happens right around the time of birth. Okay, so if we know it's a birth injury, the big question is, how? How does this even happen? And it really all comes down to the incredible physical forces at play during delivery. Yeah, you can pretty much trace it like a chain of events. A lot of times it starts with a really tough delivery. We're talking about things like a breech birth or a situation called shoulder dystocia, which is where the baby's shoulder gets stuck. Because of that difficulty, the baby's neck and shoulder area can get stretched out more than usual. It's a kind of traction injury. And it's that intense stretching that ends up damaging those C5 and C6 nerve roots. And hey, there's something else worth mentioning here. Sometimes that same stretching force can also affect another nerve, the phrenic nerve. Now, this is a big deal because the phrenic nerve is what controls the diaphragm, the main muscle we use to breathe. So doctors are definitely on the lookout for that too. All right, so we've covered what it is and how it happens, but what does it actually look like when you see it? And this brings us right back to that phrase I mentioned at the beginning, the waiter's tip position. This specific posture is the classic sign of Erb's palsy. And that name, it comes from exactly what it sounds like, the way a waiter might kind of hold their arm behind their back to discreetly take a tip. It's such a unique look, which is actually a good thing because it helps doctors spot it right away. So let's break that down piece by piece. What you'll see is the baby's arm just hanging straight down by their side, looking pretty limp. The hand is turned inward, the technical term for that is pronated, and the fingers are usually curled up or flexed. You put all of that together and boom, you've got that classic waiter's tip look. Okay, now for what I think is the most important part of this whole story, recovery. Because, let's be real, after seeing something like this, the first and only question on a parent's mind is my baby going to be okay? And here's the best news, the single most important thing to take away from all of this. The answer is almost always yes. The vast majority of the time, Erb's palsy gets better all by itself. A newborn's ability to heal is just incredible. And this condition is a perfect example of that resilience in action. So this timeline here gives us a really clear roadmap of what to expect. The injury happens at birth, right? Then we hit a key checkpoint around 2 or 3 months old. If the arm still isn't working right by then, that's when a specialist, like an orthopedic or plastic surgeon, might get involved. But, and this is the crucial part, look at the final outcome. By the time they're 2 years old, most kids have made a complete, full recovery. And that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? We've just walked through how an injury that looks so concerning right at birth can, more often than not, just heal itself. It really makes you stop and wonder, what does this incredible ability to recover teach us about just how resilient the human body truly is right from the very start?